man. I was standing there. I talked to Peter Jenkins last night.
What do you think about Bush and Kerry being cousins and members of Skull and Bones?
Excuse me?
Did you know Bush and Kerry were cousins?
Kissing cousins or what?
They really are cousins.
They really are.
There's only 15 members of Skull and Bones each year out of 290 million Americans, and both of them are Skull and Bones. Certainly you're aware of that.
Oh, well, why wouldn't you be? Talk to Bill O'Reilly. He'd have that answer. I know he would.
Well, but I'm not talking to Bill O'Reilly. What do you think?
Yeah.
We need to talk about it. I mean, him and Kerry are cousins. They are members of Skull and Bones.
The question is, would he be a Skull and Bones guy today? I mean, people do crazy things when they're young.
Well, his dad was a Skull and Bones, and his dad. It's in politicians' autobiographies. It's in the encyclopedia. And it was called the Illuminati.
I remember reading about the Illuminati in the 60s, late 60s, when Hal Lindsey came out with a book, The Late Great Planet Earth, and everybody's going to get raptured and go to, and so kids were walking around talking about that theory, and then the Illuminati book came out, or a number of them came out, and it was one world government, one world money system, one world religion.
That's all coming now.
Oh, it is.
Conspiracy theories never work. I mean, look at...
Well, every time I bring it up, somebody says, oh, you think it's a conspiracy? No, it's a real group. I want to know what you think.
We got into not a debate, but a gal who is a real confirmed Republican. She married a real liberal guy, and the next thing you know, we have her over for dinner, and I hate Bush. And I said, whoa, where'd all that come from? And she got right down to... all the things of all the presidents being involved in this society, all Masons, and that was her whole base. And I hate Bush, and I said,
well, then how can she hate Bush? Because Kerry's a member.
Well, yeah, that's a good question.
A lot of people aren't going to know what Skull and... I don't really know what it is. I know he was a member of it. It's some secret society, and
it's so secret I can't talk about it.
Yeah. By the way, you better watch yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because if there's anything to it, you're a marked man.
You guys have a good night.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're in the right place to be safe.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go
I'm
wild.
sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322?
First of all, he's not the nominee, but look, I look for...
Are you prepared to lose?
No, I'm not going to lose.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets, Tim, but one thing is not a secret. I disagree with this president's direction.
Most people don't know that the Order of Skull and Bones at Yale is simply one chapter in a larger global organization known by many as the Illuminati. Its symbol is a skull and crossbones and the number 322. Skull and Bones is the name used by the uninitiated or non-members. The true name of the organization is the Order of Death or the Order of the Death's Head. George Bush and John Kerry have both been initiated in the same way. They swore an oath to the tomb, to the order of death above all others, and to wage eternal war against all of humanity. In April of 2001, ABC News was able to get a few minutes of video of a small portion of the ritual that's conducted outside in a courtyard. What they witnessed was macabre chants of death equals death and devil equals death, accompanied by mock human sacrifices. President Taft was a prominent member of Skull and Bones, and in 1900, he became the first president to visit Bohemian Grove in Northern California, a satellite of Skull and Bones. For 3 generations, the Bushes have been members of Skull and Bones, and for 3 generations, they've traveled to Northern California and the Bohemian Grove. There are many prominent foreigners, like German Chancellor Helmut Schmidt. Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon are pictured here in 1957 at the Bohemian Grove. Both men wrote about the organization in their public memoirs. Schwarzenegger is a reported visitor to the Bohemian Grove, as well as former President Jimmy Carter. While in New York, we ran into the Karl Rove of 4 administrations. David Gergen, top presidential advisor to Ford, Reagan, George Herbert Walker Bush, and Bill Clinton. We couldn't believe our luck. It just so happens that David Gergen is also a prominent member of the Bohemian Grove, the offshoot of Skull and Bones. This insider of insiders, a staple of the White House for 22 years, got very upset when we brought up Bohemian Grove to him. He didn't deny its existence. He didn't deny that he was a member. He didn't deny the rituals. He just became angry and didn't act very gentlemanly.
The real wild card here are the demonstrators. We just don't know where this is going to go. While they were peaceful today, there's a lot more anger among those demonstrators than is evident. You talk to them today, they're pretty angry people. So that's the big wild card.
Hey, Mr. Gergen, can we talk to you for a second?
Where are you from?
I'm Alex Jones. I have a TV show in Austin. I make documentaries. Just a few questions about the convention.
Yeah, well, is there a camera or are you?
Yeah, right there. Just about. Yeah, but I just want to get your permission first. Here.
Okay. It's local. I've got.
No, I understand. Just about a minute or two.
Okay, great.
We're talking to David Gergen, and he has advised several presidents, and of course has written quite a few books, and is I would call you a political pundit or researcher.
Commentary at Over the Hill, whatever.
Okay. How long you been in New York?
About 4 hours.
What do you think of this circus?
Well, I haven't seen all the protests yet, but I've never seen as much security for a convention as we have here. And it's, the city's almost closed down. I think it's remarkable. I think it's an unfortunate turn for politics that we have to have this many police around.
There's been a lot of news articles and reports saying that there's a heightened risk of terror attacks. Do you think that's? Do you think there's a chance of that? Or
I think. Well, listen, they just arrested. I think or broken up some plot allegedly to somebody wanted to blow up subways. Yeah, I think it's a very real danger. And you've got Madison Square Garden is sitting right, basically on top of a train station, and Boston Convention was right on top of a train station. Yeah, I just have to remember that trains are very accessible, vulnerable, and that's what happened in Spain. They went after trains and they blew some trains up, and it wasn't very expensive. So I think there's that danger, but I think the police are on top of it. They're treating this as a special security event, which means there's not only the obvious police around, but believe me, there's a lot of private stuff going on here.
Okay, one last question. I read a Washington Times article many years ago where you had a comment about the organization, and then now it's been in the Wall Street Journal, it's been in a lot of different newspapers, and that's the Bohemian Grove. And back in, 1996, when you joined as a Clinton advisor, the Republicans were criticizing you, what about Bohemian Grove? And then you countered them by saying, hey, I don't run around in the woods naked. What did that mean?
Here is the before-mentioned Washington Times article where he said, I didn't run around naked like they do.
I don't know what quote you're referring to. I'm not aware of any quote like that. Listen, I am a happy member of the Bohemian Grove. I like the folks who come there, and it's really inappropriate for me to talk about the group beyond that. Thank you.
Have you been there for the ceremony with the cremation of care?
Frankly, I don't think that's something I need to talk to you about.
Great owl of Bohemia, we thank thee for thy adjuration.
Have you been there for the ceremony with the cremation of care?
Frankly, I don't think that's something I need to talk to you about.
Really?
That's right.
Well, I'm Alex Jones, and I snuck in there in 2000. I'm the guy that blew it wide open and got the video. It's been on national TV.
Well, I disrespect you for that.
You do?
I do.
But there's a lot of big public officials going in there. Don't we deserve to know?
I don't know anything about you, and I don't know anything about your film. But if you go in there with an understanding, you violated that understanding by releasing that film, and I don't respect you for that.
Really? But we have public officials.
I'm sorry. You took an understanding when you went in there that you would not do that film. And did you have an understanding when you went in there?
No.
Did you crash it?
Yes.
Yeah, and it has no trespassing signs there too, doesn't it?
No, they put them up after.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir. I've been there before. I know what the circumstances are, and I'm sorry you violated the understandings. That was not a gentlemanly thing to do.
But what about the ritual? Is the ritual gentlemanly?
sir. Everything. I don't owe you this comment.
I know, I appreciate it.
This is what's called ambush journalism, and I disrespect you for that as well. So thank you
ever
and goodbye.
been in the ritual?
That's none of your damn business.
Oh,
That's right. Listen. You go around and make understandings with people and violate them. You ambush people on the streets, and that's inappropriate form of journalism. If you wish to practice that, that's fine, but don't ask others to respect you for it. If you want to, you can do. You're a free American, like anything you want. If you want to be uncivil and rude and ungentlemanly, that's up to you. But don't expect the rest of us to say, "Oh well, you're
there, Mr. Gergen."
I'm sorry, nobody sets policy in there. We try to be gentlemen, and obviously, you don't belong there.
Weaving spiders come out here? Yeah, that is a 3-pointer. Woo! Boy, I hit the hot button. Mr. Gergen, have a wonderful life. Say hi to Moloch for me, Canaanite deity, and I'll see you at Eyes Wide Shut, baby. Bye-bye. Get his face, get his face, get his face. Get his face, get in there and get his face. David Gergen.
David Gergen says that we're angry?
The real wild card here are the demonstrators. We just don't know where this is going to go. While they were peaceful today, there's a lot more anger among those demonstrators than is evident. You talk to them today, they're pretty angry people. So that's a big wild card.
Thank you and goodbye.
Been in the ritual?
That's none of your damn business. It's none of your damn business.
Oh.
That's right. Listen.
Just look at him. That's a face keeping a lot of secrets. He's got some stories to tell. And remember that Washington Times article? It talked about all the other organizations that he resigned from. It mentions the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, all of them groups dedicated to setting up a world government and destroying American sovereignty. You're looking at video that I personally shot during the cremation of care ritual held at Bohemian Grove. My documentary film, Dark Secrets Inside Bohemian Grove, details how world leaders from across the planet meet every July and actually engage in mock human sacrifices to the Canaanite deity Moloch. They bring a bound body in an effigy of a child and sacrifice it to the idol. And incredibly, most of those in attendance are our supposed Christian conservative leaders. Here's a video still I shot while I was inside of the encampment. You see a human skull in effigy. And let's look at that deity they worship, Moloch, a Semitic deity mentioned in the Bible whose worship was marked by the human sacrifice of children. Since we blew their cover in 2000, the Grove's gone public to a certain extent. They released this photo of a 1915 ritual. Here you have the hooded figure over the mock sacrifice. And here's a simulated hanging from 1908. In this picture, you see a photo from 1909 with what looks like public officials in attendance. A black boy is tied down to some type of table, and around him we see people in strange garb. I'll leave it to you to figure out what they're doing. In 2004, the Grove released this photo from 1934 of members in hoods. The Canaanite deity Moloch was worshipped in Greece, Babylon, and then later in Europe. It is normally symbolized by a bull or an owl or some type of horned beast, and children are sacrificed to it. It is the precursor of all modern death cults. I was able to get out of the cult compound with this program cover from the Cremation of Care, and right on the front, where a child would be burned, they had photoshopped in the image of a skeleton burning in the flames. What purpose does this all serve, having world leaders congregate and engage in an ancient Canaanite ritual of mock child sacrifice? It's a way of binding them together, whether it's George Herbert Walker Bush or Henry Kissinger or Ronald Reagan or Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan, who's been a member since 1984. It's about bringing them together. Nowhere is the origin of the cult more in evidence than in former German Chancellor Helmut Schmidt's own autobiography, Men and Powers, a political retrospective. He talks about how they have their own German groves where they do these rituals, these, quote, druidic rituals. But he says his favorite place to do the rituals is at Bohemian Grove. This is a book that you can get at the library written by him. He talks about the Trilateral Commission, the CFR, the Bilderberg Group, and world government. And he says that much of the decisions are made at the Bohemian Grove. We were able to obtain the internal annals of the Bohemian Grove from 1987 to 1996, a publication only given to members. And in it, we see pictures of George W. Bush and his father, Newt Gingrich. We see all of these different famous individuals there at the Grove. Walter Cronkite, Jimmy Carter, Jack Kemp, Richard Milhouse Nixon. The list goes on and on. If you're still doubting reality, here is a November 1989 issue of Spy magazine. The Grove released photos of themselves dancing around dressed like women. And in the article, they admit that they do mock human sacrifices. The article went on to show artist renditions of the Moloch idol, as well as discussing how they bus in male prostitutes and how AIDS was a big problem. Then a New York Post article in July of 2004 reported how a top gay porn star serviced the moguls at the Bohemian Grove. This 1914 Bohemian Grove annal has a swastika on its cover, and inside it talks about how they're a German death cult founded by the Illuminati. But some of you are saying, wait a minute, the Nazis invented the swastika. That was their symbol. You're talking about 1914 and 1920. My friends, the swastika was used by the Buddhists. It was used by Native Americans. It is a sun symbol, and it was used by Druids in Europe thousands of years ago. In the 1920s and 30s in the U.S., it was a symbol of good luck, like a horseshoe. But for the Nazis and members of the Bohemian Grove, it was a symbol of power. And Adolf Hitler was obsessed with the occult. The roots of Nazi Germany grew out of groups like the Thule and Thule Society, organizations obsessed with black magic, which themselves sprung from older organizations like the Illuminati. All of these groups corresponded and called themselves Orders of the Death's Head. Adolf Hitler was a member of the Thule Society. Here you see one of their publication covers from 1919. He took their symbol as the signet of his party. It has been reported that after Madame Blavatsky died, Aleister Crowley became the head of the German Illuminati, also known as the OTO. Aleister Crowley was called the most evil man alive because of the bloodthirsty rituals he engaged in. It's important to note that both of his children died in questionable circumstances. So should we be surprised that the leader of the Third Reich, who killed millions of people, was an adherent of both of these sickening individuals? The Waffen-SS were the henchmen of the Nazi Party, and they wore an aluminum or silver death's head on their hats. Here you have a famous field marshal of World War I, and adorning his headdress is a death's head. In reality, all of Hitler's actions were nothing more than a manifestation of the deepest and darkest dreams of the Order of Death. And remember that the Order of Skull and Bones of Bohemian Grove are nothing more than offshoots of this global movement. The Nazis wore a skull and crossbones on their hats. Compare that to the skull and bones symbol. And beneath that, an early Nazi Party medal, not just with a swastika, but the 32 or 322 of Skull and Bones. We see these symbols throughout Nazi culture, especially on their icons and standards. Hitler believed that they drew power from these symbols, and he publicly talked about it. Here is an official photo taken from the Presidential Library of George Herbert Walker Bush, showing him standing with his classmates. And there it is, the Order of Death symbol, the skull and crossbones with 322 beneath it. Would it surprise you to know that one of the chief members of Bohemian Grove, Thomas Watson, was also an adherent of Adolf Hitler's ideology, and that international business machines were integral in controlling the death camps? IBM was absolutely essential in assisting Hitler in numbering and exterminating the Jews and other undesirables. The famous tattoos on Jews' arms were international business machine numbers that were entered into the computers. The computers would then decide how long to keep someone alive, and how hard they could be worked according to height and body weight as well as age. Here's a photo of Mr. Watson with Adolf Hitler in the late 1930s. It's not a coincidence that today IBM is the backbone of national ID card technology in the United States and across the world. Ford and General Motors were also involved in the Nazi war machine right through the war, and not one of these robber baron industrialists was ever prosecuted. Here is the international business machine that calculated the deaths of millions. The modern Olympic symbols have nothing to do with Greece. They were drawn and designed by Adolf Hitler, and we still use them today. The Order of the Death's Head symbols are all around us, but the general public is too blind to see it. Now we will explore how the American branch of the Illuminati aided and abetted Adolf Hitler, and how the Bushes were the first family when it came to treason.
I've been an investigative reporter and a journalist for 35 years. I've worked in every major media market in the United States, and I've written for more than 100 newspapers and magazines nationally and internationally. So last September 17th, I became the first journalist in U.S. history to go to the U.S. National Archives and the Library of Congress and pore over the thousands of pages of documents in both places to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt or any refutation of the facts that Prescott Bush, the grandfather of George W. Bush, and George Herbert Walker, his maternal great-grandfather for whom his daddy is named, were Nazi traitors to the country who should have been tried for treason. 2 weeks ago, in early August, a major world newspaper, The Guardian of London, finally got on the story internationally, and they flew a renowned reporter of theirs named Duncan Campbell over to Washington to take me back to the archives and Library of Congress so that they could verify that these explosive documents were real and I didn't have forged copies. Prescott Bush was the grandfather of George W. Bush and the father of George Herbert Walker Bush, and George Herbert Walker Bush is named for his father-in-law, George Herbert Walker. Prescott Bush graduated from Yale in 1917 and was in Skull and Bones with E. Roland Harriman, who was the younger brother of W. Averill Harriman. The Bush family really had nothing going. They were essentially social climbers and opportunistic people. At the time that Prescott Bush met Dorothy Walker, he was a tire salesman. And George Herbert Walker, as all fathers do when their daughter's going to marry someone, said in his heart, you know, it's not an appropriate thing socially that my daughter marry a tire salesman. So he brought Prescott Bush first into Brown Brothers Harriman and then Union Banking Corporation. In actuality, it was anything but a bank. It was essentially a Nazi money laundering operation that had a lot of tentacles into a lot of different other businesses. They owned a shipping line called Hamburg American Line, for example, which was the first Nazi front business seized, although the line was no longer operational in 1942. In the early 1930s, it transported Nazi spies into the U.S., and then their promotional ads offered cash rewards to any American citizens who would go back on Hamburg American Lines and proselytize for Hitler. 8 months after the U.S. had entered the war, the New York Herald Tribune ran a front-page article, Hitler's Angel has $3 million in U.S. Bank. And it caused a major scandal and just rocked the world of politics. Brown Brothers Harriman, which George Herbert Walker and Prescott Bush were affiliated with and partners in, worked with I.G. Farben, which operated Auschwitz. Prescott Bush, he did a number of things that were not only anti-American, but were pro-Hitler, and he did all that he could to proselytize for Hitler and the rise of his Third Reich, because the largest client, Fritz Thyssen, of his patron, W. Averill Harriman, dictated what kind of behavior he would practice to enhance his own career. So he was put on the board of directors of Union Banking Corporation, and he was also a shareholder in Union Banking Corporation along with E. Roland Harriman. But what's interesting about what the documents show is that they clearly state that all of the shareholders were phantom shareholders for Fitz-Thiessen and did his bidding directly. So the point I'm making is it's not as if they bought these shares of stock as a passive investment to hopefully profit from the war. They were directly doing the bidding of the individual who built the Nazi war machine. Some very shocking documents that I saw at the Library of Congress 2 weeks ago on August 10th. On August 9th, excuse me, had to do with the hearings of the McCormick-Dickstein Committee of November 1934. Show that Prescott Bush and the DuPont family, the Remington family, and J.P. Morgan tried to overthrow the U.S. government, assassinate FDR, and put a Hitler-style fascist state in place. I have in my possession testimony from the McCormick-Dickstein Committee in November of 1934 by one of the fascist plotters that they were going to follow Hitler's model exactly and impose martial law on the United States, round up unemployed people that were worthless to the economy and troublemakers and Jews and put them into internment camps. And their plan was, if necessary, to exterminate the people that could not be part of the effort. The only reason the coup attempt in 1934 didn't succeed is that they hired the wrong general to lead it, General Smedley Butler, the great Marine hero, two-time Congressional Medal of Honor winner, who worked with the plotters just long enough to be able to identify who they were and then blew the whistle on them to Congress. Incredibly, after being warned by the FBI and the Justice Department and the Treasury Department to cease and desist in their Nazi dealings, they had continued them until 1951. There had been 28 additional seizures of Nazi assets and Nazi business fronts between late 1942 and 1951, and that they had moved Nazi assets into Switzerland, Brazil, Argentina, and Panama, and they had continued to do business with their primary Nazi patron, who was Fitz-Thiessen, who backed Hitler beginning in 1921 and who was the wealthiest man in Germany, and a steel and coal baron who, with his partner Friedrich Flick, essentially built the Nazi war machine along with I.G. Farben. In 1951, when Fitz-Thiessen died in Argentina, Union Banking Corporation was liquidated by the U.S. government, and Prescott Bush received $1.5 million for his holdings in his Nazi business, and that was the beginning of the Bush family fortune for all intents and purposes. George Bush doesn't take his philosophical foundation from the Bible or the teachings of Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount. George Bush takes his inspiration from what he learned in Skull and Bones and from the Thule Society that Hitler and Goebbels and Goring cut their teeth in, Bohemian Grove, these evil organizations that perpetrate the ugly things that these criminals are doing to this country for which they must be held accountable. Now you look at the Republican National Convention this week, and you bring in Arnold Schwarzenegger to speak last night. Schwarzenegger is the son of a Nazi. He has praised Nazis. He has praised Hitler. He talked last night in terms like, we will not falter, we will not waver, we will win this war on terror.
He's a leader who doesn't flinch, who doesn't waver, and does not back down.
Well, that's exactly the speeches that Hitler made after the Reichstag fire. Terrorism and the homeland being under attack are precisely the issues that Hitler used to subvert everything within the German system of government. This is a criminal regime. They not only emulate Hitler, but its genesis comes from Hitler. And I defy anyone, a historian, journalist, author, anyone, to come forward and disprove my premise that you cannot differentiate Hitler's invasion of Poland in 1939 and the Reichstag fire and his attempt to dominate the world from George W. Bush's unprovoked invasion of Iraq and subversion of the Constitution through the Patriot Act after 9/11, which I submit is his Reichstag fire. Karl Rove and his minions are every bit the masters of propaganda that Joseph Goebbels was. They literally took lessons from Goebbels and Goring about how to create such brilliant propaganda that unreality can become reality and reality can be subverted to fantasy political subterfuge right before your eyes. So there's just an endless broken record that is leading up to the present era, that the Bush family has had a single goal for 100 years, which is to become the most powerful family on the planet and to rule the world. And they are on the verge of doing that under George W. Bush. It's critical that every citizen of this country rise up and do something, because the day of reckoning is at hand, and these people are Nazis. They are practicing Nazi philosophy. They are mimicking Nazi tactics, and time is running out.
And now it's being reported that the architect of the Bush administration's policies, Karl Rove, is the grandson of Karl Rover, a Gauleiter or governor over an entire state in Nazi Germany. Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Bob Woodward, reporting on a Bush rally, said that Karl Rove likened the meeting to a Nazi rally. Now the Bush-Rove-Schwarzenegger nexus is promoting worldwide war in the name of America's safety to stop the threat of terrorism. The same secret society that funded and supported Adolf Hitler is now supporting a move towards world government, and Karl Rove is out there on point pushing Arnold Schwarzenegger for president.
Today.
We don't know what to make of the fact that he seemed to be so much part of the winner's circle, do we? We don't know why he was so much in evidence today.
Well, he's the Republican governor of the most populous state in the Union, who is very supportive. He's an old friend of 41's.
The San Francisco Chronicle reported the decision to have Arnold run was made by Rove at the Bohemian Grove. You've got to hand it to the political wizards. Tens of thousands of Republicans at the RNC praising and chanting for a man who's for open borders and rabidly against the Second Amendment, but they've been told to worship him, so they are. This isn't the first time we've been fooled by foreign usurpers. There was another interesting meeting in Madison Square Garden back in February of 1939 by the Bund, or the American Nazi Party. At the very same venue where Bush and Schwarzenegger gave their speeches in 2004, the American Nazi Party promoted the vision of Adolf Hitler. In fact, the Nazi Party in America was very, very popular. The people hadn't yet seen the danger, because while the American people slept, Nazi agents like Prescott Bush were working overtime for the right. And Arnold's father, Gustav Schwarzenegger, was busy too, volunteering for the Nazi Party in Austria when it was illegal and becoming an SS officer. And Karl Rove, reportedly his grandfather again, was a Gauleiter or a governor over an entire German state.
Mr. Fritz Kuhn. You all have heard of me through the Jewish-controlled press as a creature with horns, a cloven hoof, and a long tail. If you ask what we are actively fighting for under our charter, I will here repeat the declaration I made public some time ago. First, a social, just, white, Gentile, ruled United States. Second,
all the American Nazis talked about was how much they loved America, how pro-USA they were. And a lot of the public bought it. And the fathers and grandfathers of the men who run our country today were in full support of the Bund. It's now the 21st century, and things have gotten a lot slicker. The question is, will the public buy it?
California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Thank you.
Did I wake up in the middle of a Twilight Zone or Outer Limits episode? The American people cheering and chanting the name of someone whose homeland is Austria and who openly talks about being a dictator all the time?
Thank you very much. Thank you. What a greeting.
Arnold wants to be our leader, our Fuhrer. And as American citizens, we have a right to expose him. And that's what we're about to do. From CBS's 60 Minutes to NBC's Meet the Press, Arnold has been all over the airwaves, pushing for amending the Constitution so he can run for president. High-level members of his gubernatorial campaign have now started a national movement to repeal Article 2, Clause 5 of the U.S. Constitution that blocks foreign-born from the presidency. In November of 2004, former President George Herbert Walker Bush gave Schwarzenegger the George Bush Award at his presidential library in College Station, Texas. And he told the crowd, "Don't bet against Arnold Schwarzenegger. There's a good chance he's going to end up being our president." Arnold Schwarzenegger positioned himself into the Kennedy family by marrying Maria Shriver. And now she's out shilling for him, but saying, "It's for other foreigners, not for my husband. Change it for everybody. It's fair. Just trust me." For well over a year, every day they're in the newspapers or on television, pushing to change the Constitution. And now Schwarzenegger, in an authorized biography, has told the Kennedy biographer that yes, there is a secret plan to put him into the White House. And the powerful head of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Orrin Hatch, has introduced what is called the Arnold Bill. There are 3 other pieces of legislation introduced by other congressmen like Dana Rohrabacher in the House. They just continue pushing and pushing and pushing, despite the fact that in major polls, 80+% of Americans are against changing the Constitution for Schwarzenegger. But we've got to take the threat seriously, because after a year of propaganda, the numbers have dropped to 65% being against it. And then you have to ask yourself, what will those numbers be in 4 years? The elite love Arnold Schwarzenegger because he has an international appeal, and they've been very carefully grooming him for his role as American president inside the New World Order. That's why we've launched Americans Against Arnold and the website arnoldexposed.com in a desperate attempt to stop this foreign usurper.
Efforts by supporters of California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger to change the United States Constitution are not sitting well with the Texas radio host. Alex Jones claims he raised $5,000 in just 2 hours to combat the campaign for a constitutional amendment to make non-native citizens eligible to serve as president. Jones says he will run TV ads in Austin, Texas and Sacramento, California, opposing the amendment drive.
Now let's look at the men who hold the strings connected to the marionette. Here are 2 different San Francisco Chronicle articles revealing that it was Karl Rove at Bohemian Grove that set the strategy for Arnold's successful gubernatorial win. An article in the Scotsman newspaper in September of 2002 openly showed Arnold Schwarzenegger with Warren Buffett and Lord Rothschild and said they were there meeting at the Rothschild Castle to discuss business strategies. In the article, they talked about how he was lining up his run for U.S. president a year before he ran for governor. In the middle of the Enron-engineered California energy crisis, Arnold met secretly with Michael Milken, the junk bond dealer, and Kenneth Lay at a Beverly Hills hotel. The federal government has now released documents from the event, and guess what they were doing at the meeting? Discussing how to cover up Enron's culpability. Arnold ran for governor promising that he wouldn't take special interest money. Guess what? He's broken all previous records for taking corporate money. Like other famous Austrians we can think of, Arnold is obsessed with being king of the world. He's told friends, family, newspapers, magazines, over and over again that he wants to be ruler of the world, that he dreams of being a dictator, that he wants to be worshipped at a Nuremberg-style rally like Hitler. Rolling Stone reported on it in the 70s. The London Guardian and CNN in 2003 both reported how he told friends and family of a recurring dream where he walks the earth as our ruler, and of a 50-year plan he had as a young man to become world ruler. In 1990, he told U.S. News and World Report, "My relationship to power and authority is that I'm all for it. People need somebody to watch over them. 95% of the people in the world need to be told what to do and how to behave." Following in the footsteps of dictators before him, Arnold loves to be seen with giant images of himself behind him. The cult of personality concept in politicians is totally alien to America's history, but it's second nature to people like Kim Jong-il, dictator of North Korea, and ousted dictator Saddam Hussein of Iraq. It was pioneered by Alexander the Great and used to great effect by the Roman emperors. Hitler and Stalin just loved it because it made the people feel insignificant. In the dystopic novel 1984, huge portraits of Big Brother stare down on the slaves. But after all, Arnold's just going with the times. Now across the United States, we've seen these giant billboards with George Bush's picture on it, paid for by his supporters, that say, "George Bush, our leader." President Bush has done something that no American president has ever done. He likes to prance around in military uniforms, reminding us of where his power comes from. We should all be concerned that our president is dressing like Saddam Hussein, Fidel Castro, Mao Zedong, and Adolf Hitler. And Bush loves to be seen in uniform with lots of troops behind him. But so does Arnold. Here is Schwarzenegger giving the fascist salute in one of his bodybuilding poses. A trick the pro-Schwarzenegger press likes to play on the people is to focus on his father and then go, well, he can't help it if his father was an SS officer. What they don't like to focus in on is Nazi war criminal Kurt Waldheim, who was Secretary General of the United Nations. At his wedding to Maria Shriver in 1986, in front of a massive press in attendance, he said the following: "My friends don't want me to mention Kurt's name because of all the recent Nazi stuff and the UN controversy, but I love him, and Maria does too, and so thank you, Kurt." Here's a photo of Arnold Schwarzenegger with Kurt Waldheim in Austria in 1999. Kurt Waldheim was an elite Nazi as well, an officer in the SS. He hunted down American soldiers in Serbia and killed them. An article in '92 in Spy magazine reported on how Arnold liked to give away recordings of Adolf Hitler to friends in California. It also reported on how he loved to give the Sieg Heil salute. Former Mr. Universe Rick Wayne went public and talked about how Arnold loved to call black people the N-word and said they couldn't run or do anything, and how he went on to say that blacks were basically worthless to society. A second champion black bodybuilder, Robbie Robinson, went public. And in his testimony, he talked about a public event in front of thousands of people where Arnold in 1978 began screaming, "Down with the N-words, down with the blacks, subhuman, you people can't run the country." It goes on, but the mainstream media ignores it. Arnold's barbaric treatment of women is legendary, and he's publicly apologized for it. The reason this is so important is it shows a total lack of control. He's a wild man. More important is his love of domination. He loves to degrade underlings. Arnold has never challenged a 2001 Premier magazine article where he reportedly makes unattractive members on set get on their knees and call themselves ugly dogs. He reportedly revels in humiliating people until they cry. Not only is he a man after the elite's own heart, loving to dehumanize, he's totally compromised. If we know about all of these skeletons, imagine how many are still in the closet. In a sit-down interview Arnold gave We magazine, he talked about drug use and sex orgies. The elite just loves that. Total control over their puppet. Then there's all the publicly available gay porn. That's right. In gay porno mags, Arnold's done some spreads. But on top of it, there's the private collections of people like Robert Mapplethorpe, who was a pioneer in hardcore homosexual pornography. One of the biggest problems in Arnold's portfolio of horrors is his admitted use of anabolic steroids. Anabolic steroids, especially heavy use, can permanently change one's psychological makeup. He's also been a poster child for steroid use that has been a ravage on the youth of America. But being a bad role model is nothing compared to the psychological effects that include mania, roid rage, extreme aggression, delusions of grandeur. This is what testosterone and its derivatives cause. It's in the medical handbooks. So let's look at this again. An individual who says he wants to be a dictator, who reportedly hands out recordings of Adolf Hitler's speeches, who openly promotes
admitted Nazis like Kurt Waldheim, after they're exposed as Nazis and doesn't apologize about it, now wants to be our president. And he's taken a drug that can permanently alter the chemistry of the brain, making you domineering and aggressive and delusional. We're talking about Arnold Alois Schwarzenegger being positioned to be president of the United States, in control of all of our military forces. Think about this compromised individual. In control of our B-2 bombers, our nuclear submarines, our nuclear missiles, our Air Force, our Army, our Navy, everything. You put that together with the police in black uniforms, the ski mask, the Patriot Act. It's a nightmare. And we have the very same elite that tried to bring Hitler to power now pushing Schwarzenegger. It's up to you, America. You better research these facts for yourself and take action to defend our republic from enemies foreign and domestic. In the battle for our liberties and freedoms and our children's future, it's going to be reality, not illusion, that's going to save this country. If we believe the propaganda and the slick packaging, we are going to go into the Fourth Reich of the New World Order. Schwarzenegger and his controllers are counting on you to not take action, to not inform yourself and others, to not stand up against this insane action that they're taking against us, trying to put some foreigner from Austria who says he wants to be a dictator and in control of this country.
And in spite of the attack on our homeland, on our homeland, on our homeland, on our homeland.
Schwarzenegger has the nerve to call America his homeland. By definition, your homeland is the country where you were born. And that country for you, Arnold, is Austria, of the Black Eagle and Lederhosen, where your father was an SS officer, where your mother, when he died, married another top SS officer. That's your homeland. Your homeland is the birthplace of Adolf Hitler, and America will never be your homeland. Your claim of America as your homeland is as false as everything else you do. Then Arnold went into a very revealing diatribe where he talked about the police state in Austria, a police state his father helped set up. The problem is America's turning into that very police state. It's a mirror image.
When I was a boy, the Soviets occupied part of Austria. I saw their tanks in the streets. I saw communism with my own eyes. I remember the fear we had when we had to cross into the Soviet sector. Growing up, we were told, don't look the soldiers in the eye, just look straight ahead. It was common belief that the Soviet soldiers could take a man out of his own car and ship him back to the Soviet Union as slave labor. Now, my family didn't have a car, but one day we were in my uncle's car. It was near dark as we came to the Soviet checkpoint. I was a little boy. I was not an action hero back then. But I remember how scared I was that the soldiers would pull my father or my uncle out of the car and I would never see them again. My family and so many others lived in fear of the Soviet boot.
Well, Arnold, now America imprisons more people than any other country on the face of the earth. And American children grow up in the high-tech police state that your masters have built. After winning the rigged election against his cousin John Kerry, Bush said that he had political capital. He went on to explain that meant he could do whatever he wanted to.
Look at the number of uniformed personnel, all of them armed. It's estimated there are 60,000 armed and uniformed members of law enforcement here. Roughly one police officer or soldier tasked to this duty per every 4 or 5 spectators, the highest ratio in history.
You've driven around this city, Chris, the last couple of days. Brian and I were talking about it. It was close to an armed camp.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, George W. Bush, and First Lady Laura Bush. Wave to them. Let them know that you love America.
Administer the presidential oath of office. Justice Rehnquist.
Lord Bush went on to give an oath that he would protect and defend the Constitution, when all he's been doing is trying to dismantle it. His new Attorney General, Alberto Gonzales, has said publicly that President Bush is above the law, above the Constitution, a dictator.
Will you raise your right hand, Mr. President, and repeat after me? I, George Walker Bush.
I, George Walker Bush.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
And will to the best of my ability.
And will to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
So let's look at what Bush has actually done to the Constitution and Bill of Rights since getting into office. He passed Patriot Act 1 that dismantles at least 7 of the first 10 amendments. And under Section 802, all Americans are defined as terrorists. Under Section 802, the new definition of terrorism is redefined as acts that are dangerous to human life that violate any federal or state law. And when Bush talks about reauthorizing the Patriot Act, that's code for passing Patriot Act 2. Under the Patriot Act, Homeland Security has visited toy stores over possible trademark infringement. An Army doctor who complained too much was arrested by Homeland Security. Topless bars, zoning disputes, pot dealers. It's all under the Patriot Act. And starting in 2005, all new passports are digitally tracked by an RFID chip. It's easy to get in, but hard to get out. And before he left office, Homeland Security Chief Tom Ridge called for a world ID card. In late 2004, Bush successfully got the Congress to pass a national ID card, craftily hidden in state driver's license under federal standardization. Bush told conservatives that it would stop illegal immigration. There's nothing in the bill concerning immigration other than the fact that it actually orders the states to accept consular matriculas issued by foreign nations, so it actually makes it easier to get into the country. The bill even talks about it being used as an internal passport at checkpoints. Bush also successfully rammed through the Orwellian-named New Freedom Initiative. This forces every child in America from age 5 to 18 to be psychologically tested twice a year, whether you're homeschooled, private schooled, or public schooled. The guidelines for mental illness were written by a consortium of drug companies. And in their own internal documents, they bragged that they'll go from 15% of American children on psychotropic drugs and Ritalin to over 50%. The law states that without parental consent, while your child is at school, they will be forcibly tested. And Illinois is already jumping ahead. They're saying they're going to start forcibly testing all pregnant women. This is the type of nightmare that only Joseph Stalin could dream of. But our government is making it a reality. But if you look at foster children in America, over 2/3 of them are on psychotropic drugs. That's what happens when the state has control. 2/3 on drugs. Well, I guess that's the new freedom. The federal government has spent billions and billions of dollars putting up cameras across the nation, except for our borders. I have seen over 50 mainstream reports where video cameras are put in school bathrooms and showers. And when the schools get caught doing it, they say it's for your safety. And now the establishment just throws it in our face. Prepare to be scanned. We track you with your cell phones. We're putting cameras up on the street corners that read all your license plates and track everywhere you go. And we're going to tax you with these new cameras. We're going to put satellite tracker boxes in all your cars and transponders. We're going to tax you by the mile. This is just the way it is, so get used to it. Oh, and 8 years ago, we started putting black boxes in all the new cars that track everything you do as well. And now industry and the federal government are just calmly saying that soon all new cars will have a camera in them that scan your face as you drive and instantly report back to the police department if you're driving while you're tired or if you're arguing with your wife. Under a new sales tax system being prepared that will be implemented to the national ID card, you'll have to thumb scan when you buy and sell. And the face scanning cameras we mentioned will keep track of you not just in your car, but as you walk down the street. Almost every federal, state, and local road in the country will be satellite and transponder tracked. We already mentioned that earlier. And when Californians heard about Governor Schwarzenegger's program, they got very upset, and over 90% of them were against it in polls. The governor just said, I don't care what you want, we're going to do this. It's going to take the average tax by the mile from 25 cents at the state level to over $3. Read it for yourself. It's the official news reports. Similar plans are being pushed by the feds in all 50 states. But that's just the financial hardship. There'll no longer be any open road. Everything you do will be tracked, chronicled, and traced. Whether it's a large highway or a rural road, everywhere you go will be chronicled. And in middle schools across the country, students are having to wear RFID tags around their necks, tracking and training them how to be good little prisoners. And now hospitals are openly discussing making their patients take implantable microchips. Bars in the United States and Europe make their patrons take chips before they can enter the VIP sections. And now the Mexican Attorney General has forced over 160 of his deputies to take implantable microchips if they want to work in his office.
I, Richard Cheney, do solemnly swear.
I, Richard Cheney, do solemnly swear.
That I will defend and support the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
It's no wonder that Speaker of the House Dennis Hastert stumbled over the oath as he read it. He's not stupid. He knows that a textbook dictatorship is being set up in America, complete with shadow government that can take control of Congress. Oh yes, now Congress has given its authority up to an unbridled executive branch. There have been other cryptic statements. The outgoing head of CENTCOM, General Tommy Franks, told Cigar Aficionado that if America is attacked by terrorists again, we'll have to suspend the Constitution in favor of a military form of government, or martial law. It's abhorrent to American values to have the military involved in any way in civilian life, especially in law enforcement. It's been a staple of Communist China and Nazi Germany, Soviet Russia, and Cuba today, but not America. Why are we following every telltale sign of a police state? We're dealing with a group of predators, an elite that sees us as cattle, as their slaves. They want to train us to be predators like they are, to join them in their quest for world empire, to be their cannon fodder. Just look at the torture they've been promoting on television and in movies, and then we watch as it manifests itself in the real world, in Iraq and Guantanamo Bay. What we're witnessing is the construction of a worldwide dictatorship. But to get it done, they have to be able to manipulate us into going along with it. They're confident that you won't wake up till it's too late. The good news is people are waking up in record numbers. The question is, now that you know the secret, now that you understand the inner workings of the New World Order, will you take action to wake others up and stand up against this Fourth Reich of the elite? The globalists have America and Europe in their grasp today, but tomorrow they want the world.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th. Malicious lies that attempt to shift the blame away from the terrorists themselves, away from the guilty. Conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories. The hijackers were instruments of evil who died in vain. Behind them is a cult of evil which seeks to harm the innocent and thrives on human suffering.
To purchase additional copies of this film, or to see dozens of other films and important books, be sure and visit Infowars.com or PrisonPlanet.com. Or to order, simply call toll-free 1-888-253-3139.